Fifth Down Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and I'm here today with John Michaels. He's over at 680 The Fan, ESPN Sports Radio also, and I'm glad to have him on the show today. John, we appreciate you taking time with us today.
Dude, anytime we could talk ball, let's do it.
I know, right? Uh, the Miami Dolphins, man, have had a rough year to say the least. Tua's had a rough year. Everybody in that organization, man, that team just hasn't been a good year for them. So I think they're 1-6 right now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Just lost to the Browns 31-6 on Sunday. So what's your overall assessment on the team? Tua, and I mean, where do they go from here, man? I mean, honestly.
Man, it's tough. So, just for the background, I know a lot of people go, man, you're in Atlanta. You used to work for the Falcons. So, I grew up a Dolphin fan. I grew up in South Florida. They were the only team in town, them and the University of Miami, which is why I love the Canes as well.
Yeah.
There was no Heat. There were no Marlins. It was literally Dolphins football. It was Canes football. And I got to grow up in the heyday with Dan Marino and Don Shula and going to Super Bowls and being really good. The team that I see now is not the same group. They're one of the two or three worst organizations in all of sports, not just the NFL, in all of sports. They're poorly run. I'm not sure that their owner, Stephen Ross, gives a damn whether they win or not. He just wants to make sure people are at Hard Rock Stadium, that the Formula One track is being used there, that they get concerts and World Cups and everything else. And you can tell just by the way that they're run. Brian Flores got run out of town. They tried to go after him saying, he had the suit saying that he was being forced to tank. They're saying otherwise. They go out and hire Mike McDaniel, and at first it looks like a match made in heaven. Offense is good. You go out and trade for Tyreek Hill. You drafted Jalen Waddle. You draft Tua Tagovailoa. 2 years ago, they're 9-3, literally in the lead to have the bye in the AFC, and they lose on a Monday night to Tennessee. Stupid game. Tennessee was terrible. They were like 4-12. They had Will Levis at quarterback, but at that point, you could see Miami was no longer tough. They got out physical that night. They got beat up. And from that point, it's been going downhill. And where they're at right now, honestly, is laughable. I can't watch them on a Sunday afternoon because it's a comedy of errors. Literally, either they get pushed around like they did against Cleveland, or they'll play just good enough to be close like they did 2 weeks ago against the Chargers and then blow it at the end. They're a bad team. The Falcons, to steal something from our show, they bet not lose to this ragtag group on Sunday afternoon.
No, they better not. Oh, they better not. So, yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, man. I'm watching them, and it's just like, I don't know what they're doing out there, I mean, and I like to think about this. I think Mike McDaniel, and listen, I like Mike, I think he's a guy that players, like as far as like, just he's the type of coach that, he like his energy, right? But at the same time, I feel like he's one of those guys where he he doesn't have the respect. That's the vibe I get from Mike McDaniel. I mean, I watch his press conferences like, and it's like he doesn't even know where he is half the time. And I'm like, this dude high every time. And he's just, I don't know, man. Do you think they fire him like this year?
I would have thought he'd be fired already. I mean, each week they lose and they lose in spectacular fashion. I go, man, they're going to end up firing this guy. And then Stephen Ross comes out and goes, no, he's safe. General manager Chris Greer, he's safe. Again, I don't know how you go to games if you live down in South Florida, other than it's just an event outside of, really watching football. I think Mike McDaniel's the classic case if he would be a great coordinator and he's not a great head coach. And I'm with you, Jay. Like, listen to him. We play a lot of his clips on the locker room. We play him now for comedic relief because I have no earthly idea what he's talking about. He's stumbling through words. And I can't imagine him getting up in front of 53 grown pit bulls. And that's what most NFL guys are. They're pit bulls. Him standing up and motivating anybody. Like, if I hear him, he sounds like a Caltech engineer. He doesn't sound like a guy that should be running a football team. Genius level play calling. Hell, I'd like him here in Atlanta. If Zach Robinson decides to leave, he can come in and be our offensive coordinator because I think he found different ways to get the guys the ball that need to get the ball. Tyreek Hill 2 years ago had 1,700 yards receiving and was voted the number one player by the NFL players in that top 100. He's found ways to get Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and all those guys the ball. I just don't see him as a motivator of men on Sunday afternoon. Then when you see what Tua Tagovailoa said 2 weeks ago, where he said, wait a second, we have meetings that people show up when they want. They don't show up. They're not mandatory, but they should be here. There's a lack of leadership inside that building, and it's a big reason they're 1-6.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think people understand how important, listen, I played football, I mean, well, all up to the high school level, but still, I understand, as a player, if I don't, like if I don't take the guy that's supposed to be leading us seriously, then it's not going to work. I mean, because you like you said, you're supposed to be motivating these men, especially these are grown men at this, and it's like how if they, I mean, if they don't take you seriously, if they don't respect you as a man, not just as a coach, but as a man, then you can't expect to get their best effort each and every week. So watching the Dolphins, that's what I see. And with Tua, man, I don't know how to assess him. I mean, I think Tua is just an interesting piece, man. Like um, would you say you still want him back as a franchise guy next year if you're the Dolphins?
They don't have a choice. Unfortunately for them, when they signed him to that contract extension, 250 some odd $1 million, he's their guy for a couple of years. What you have to do now is put a team in place around him that's going to accentuate what he does best. And again, I'll use Mike McDaniel. For the first couple of years, he put Tua in position to make plays. They were fast, get the ball out, get it in space to receivers. 2.2 seconds that ball was coming out, and Tua was making throws. He's a really accurate quarterback from about 20 yards in. His deep throws, it leaves a little bit to be desired. But when you're throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you just throw it as far as you can and let one of those guys go make plays. The problem is they never put an offensive line around him to give him any protection. They tried to go with Terron Armstead a couple of years ago, and unfortunately for him, injuries and 4 or 5 games a year he was able to be healthy, and then 4 or 5 he was banged up, and then he'd miss 5. They've tried drafting guys. Austin Jackson's been banged up. They lost their center a couple of years ago. They let him go in free agency. They've tried like Robert Hunt through the draft choice. They've tried bringing guys in free agency. The offensive line's been horrible for as long as Tua has been there. And the problem when you're running a precision passing game, what they would see against tough teams, and I'd use Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, teams in the AFC that were tough and physical, they'd walk up and say, fine, we're going to beat the hell out of your receivers on the outside, not let them get free releases and run wherever they want to go to. And now we're going to beat up your offensive line. Tua's immobile. He can't run. I think the hip injury at Alabama 6 or 7 years ago really scared him from doing that. He obviously has dealt with multiple concussions. So now he's a guy that's protecting himself. And I think Mike McDaniel a lot of times has gone away from the running game. 2 years ago, Raheem Mostert had 20 touchdowns on the ground. Yet they got in the postseason. I think that was the game they were in the ice in Kansas City, and they're back there throwing it 40 times. They never beat teams that were tough. And then once the book was out, beat up the Dolphins, be physical with them. You can't beat them, and they're not going to be able to beat you. Now Tua has to go read 2, read 3. And I never think he was that type of quarterback. Do you want him to be your franchise quarterback? I was in favor of signing him because when you looked at the numbers when they were good, Tua had elite numbers. Heck, last year, I think he led the league in completions at 70+%, and that was with Tyreek Hill hurt and Jalen Waddle hurt for stretches of the year. The problem, though, is they never beat good teams. And now this year, they're not completing passes. Tua's got 10 picks already. He got benched in Cleveland. Now, they said this week they're not going to bench him. He'll play against the Falcons. We should get a couple of turnovers off of him. But it's a bad product, and they're in a bad position. They remind me, and I love to crap on the Saints anytime I can.
Of course.
The
Yes.
Saints overspent for years, kicking the can down the road. Now it's eventually caught up with them, and they're stuck with Spencer Rattler, and they drafted Tyler Shuck, and all their good players are old or no longer good. The Dolphins are at that point. They should have traded Tyreek Hill a year ago when he had value. It's too late now. Now he's got the torn up knee. You can't get anything for him. They probably should have waited another year on Tua, although I understand. And again, I was a guy, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I was in favor of him getting a deal, much like everybody else. And now you're just stuck at a point where you've got either old guys that are no good or you don't have draft choices that are panning out. They're a terrible franchise.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I mean, you think you look at the Dolphins on paper, you think this is a team that should be able to compete in the AFC. I mean, Jalen Waddle, like you said, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, on paper, offensively, and then Tua being an accurate quarterback, right? This is a guy that has a history of that going back to Alabama. Defensively, I mean, not a bad defense. Got some good players on defense, but I think, it's just the offense, the way they're playing right now, because football, as you know, is a complementary game, and if the offense is, punting, at midfield every game, and it's like you're not helping your defense out, and so that's the thing for me. I think Tua, I don't know, I think Tua is still living off that second and 26 years later, and it's not. I don't know, man. I don't think he's just. I don't believe he is a true NFL QB. I mean, as far as like having to, go win when it matters, the real NFL QBs have to go and do that. He hasn't done that.
He was good when he had the pieces around him. And again, to me, I hate to call him this, but he felt like a system quarterback. The more I go back and kind of think about his career in Miami, when the system fit him perfectly. And remember, they were the first ones to run. I don't even know how to explain it, but the motion where Tyreek Hill would be lined up inside and run away from the line of scrimmage and then kind of turn up field and wheel
Yeah,
route it. And it was, people in the NFL complained about it. They go, oh, this is unfair. It's Canadian League. That was Mike McDaniel being a genius. I want to go to your point about the defense. They had pushed chips in the middle on the defense. He went and traded for Bradley Chubb a couple of years ago. You drafted Jalen Phillips at the edge, who was really good. You had Christian Wilkins. You went and traded for Jalen Ramsey. I forget our safety that they let walk this past year. Not
he
Minka
was
Fitzpatrick.
um,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, I can't remember his name either, but yeah, go
Kid
ahead.
out of Oregon, because the Falcons drafted Richie Grant instead of him, and the other kid out of Oregon was a heck of a lot better, but they let him walk in free agency. The problem was you pushed all those chips in the middle and it didn't pan out. You let Christian Wilkins walk for money, and you understand he was kind of a malcontent with the Raiders. I don't even think he's on a roster right now. Bradley Chubb tears up his knee in a meaningless fourth quarter of a game that they're getting blown out 2 years ago. Jalen Phillips has had multiple injuries, so he's been out. You trade Jalen Ramsey because he was on the downside of his career, and you bring back Minka Fitzpatrick, who you never should have got rid of about 6 years ago when you drafted him in the first place. So now you're kind of a ragtag group on defense. They've got Brandon Sealer inside, who's really good at defensive tackle, but you paid him a bunch of money. And now they're stuck in that Saints limbo of salary cap hell. You're 1-6. I'm not sure if they even have a first round pick this year. I haven't looked that far in front. If they do, it's going to be probably trying to replace quarterback or something else, but they're in a bad place. Falcons should match up really good against this football team. But the way that we've rushed the passer, even last week in the loss against San Francisco, there was pressure to be had. Tua is going to give you the ball if you put him in harm's way. And I want to see James Pierce. I want to see Leonard Floyd, Brandon Dorless, those guys get up the field, pressure him. If I'm Jeff Ulbrich, I'm sending 5 every single time the Dolphins are in passing situations.
Yeah, most definitely. This should be a automatic Falcons win on Sunday, John. There's no reason it should. And I want to touch on the Falcons here for a second. Loss against San Fran, very bad loss, as we know. Had some time to marinate about it. So 3-3, at this point in the season. I mean, did you see before the season started? I mean, was this something like, realistic that you saw the Falcons being at this point by this time of year?
It's funny because expectations change, as you well know, week to week with the Falcons. If you would have said before the year you're 3-3, looking at the teams you played, Buffalo and San Francisco and Minnesota, obviously Tampa, Carolina, and Washington. If you would have said 6-6, I think, or 3-3, most people would have said, all right, good. We've navigated the tough part of the schedule. That was with the expectation of the Dolphins not being good, then the Patriots, then the Colts. Hey, we can rattle off 3 or 4 in a row, not knowing that the Patriots would be 5-2 and the Colts, Daniel Jones would find the fountain of Duke or whatever the hell he's found. The problem is the way you've gone 3-3. Tampa, you should have won. You got Younghoe Koo. You got to make that field goal at the end and get it to overtime because your defense really dominated most of that game. Carolina that's the one that I think for all Falcon fans, as the year goes along, you're going to look back and go, what the hell happened up there? It's almost like we laid down. You had won on the road against Minnesota. You get shut out by Carolina. Then you come back and win back-to-back at home. Dominate the Commanders. I don't give a damn if they didn't have their quarterbacks. Not my problem. Beat
Yeah.
up on Buffalo. Again, not my problem. And you went to San Francisco with a winnable game. And I think that's what pisses us off more than anything is offense is terrible on the road. You average 10 points a game on the road. 10. It's pathetic. You only average 18 points a game, which I think is 4th to the last in the NFL with all the weapons that you have, only above like the Jets, the Dolphins, and maybe Cleveland as far as points per game offense. The San Fran game, they were without their starting quarterback, 2 of their starting wide receivers. Nick Bosa's gone. Fred Warner's gone. Multiple players in the secondary, and you had every chance to win. I thought there were a lot of times on Sunday you got out coached Kyle Shanahan coached Jeff Ulbrich under the table for a while. I thought Raheem Morris did the typical Raheem Morris and panicked. If you listen to us on the Fan, I'm mad every day that we do not have a kicker that can make a 50-plus yard field goal. I watch guys walk off the street in Green Bay and in San Francisco and everywhere else, and they're going 15 for 15 and 16 for 16, yet down 3 on the road with a chance to tie the game. I get it. You go for it on fourth down. You go for it on fourth down without Bijan Robinson or Kyle Pitts on the field. Stupid play. The Niners defense said they knew what play was coming, but you got to be able to make that kick. 70+%, 50 yards and out are what kickers are making in the NFL, and we don't even attempt them. It's 2 weeks in a row we didn't attempt them. And my thing is, if you don't trust Parker Romo, go find somebody you do trust, because you can't win in the NFL if you can't make 50-plus yard field goals.
Yeah, you said it well, man. Exactly. That play really confused me. Not just the fact they went for it, but again, you don't have your best players on the field, and that just was mind-boggling for me. And I mean, not to mention the defensive line, man, got just walloped through. I mean, it's like Moses was parting the Red Sea. I mean, like it was like you could fit a Mack truck through that lane, and we hadn't seen. I mean, the Falcons' defense wasn't the best at stopping the run coming into the game, but it's still. Decent enough, and just they ran right through us. They didn't, they mentioned a couple times on the broadcast, like they kind of abandoned that wide zone type of run game. They were just kind of running through the middle pretty much with McCaffrey. That's all they were doing, and we couldn't stop it. And then JD Bertrand comes in the game.
And on fourth down, one, we only had 10 guys on the field, goes back to coaching.
Yeah.
And I heard Raheem Morris say, it's on me. I'm not going to blow. I'm sorry. Somebody, you've got 50 analysts and assistant coaches and position coaches. Coach, we have 10, call a timeout. You got to call a timeout there on 3rd and 13 with the game on the line. And then if you only have 10, you still cover number 23. Like, how the hell do you not know the ball's going to Christian McCaffrey? I make Juwan Jennings. I make George Kittle. I don't care. I don't even know who the hell else they had on the field. They let Christian McCaffrey run straight up the field, catch the ball, pick up a first down, and the game's over. Frustrating, to say the least.
Very frustrating. Oh man, I mean, it's such a winnable game. I mean, like you said, and Matt Jones didn't play that well. I mean, we played him like we played most of the quarterbacks we played this year. I mean, held him under 200 yards passing. I mean, you think with that, you win the game, hold them to 20 points. Usually that's good for wins in the NFL. Usually when you hold teams to 20 points or under, or really under like 24 points, a game, then you usually win when you're off, but your offense has to the score. And they weren't doing that. So, I don't know, man.
It's frustrating because you've invested 4th overall pick in Kyle Pitts. And Kyle has probably played himself, at least this far, into a contract extension at the end of the year. You use the 8th overall pick on Michael Penix, the 8th overall pick on Drake London, the 8th overall pick on Bijan Robinson. You use a first-round pick on Chris Lindstrom. I know Caleb McGarry's hurt. Jake Matthews once was a first-round pick. Like, all of these guys are supposed to be really good on offense. You signed Darnell Mooney a year ago to a free agent deal. I know he's been banged up a bunch, but the problem is so much inconsistency on offense. And it could be from one series to the next. Buffalo, we go 3 touchdowns and, oh my goodness, we're going to put up 40. And then we score 1 touchdown, or actually we kick 1 field goal the rest of the way. We have 1 touchdown in the last 6 quarters. Like, you can't have that talent on offense and poop it away every single week. That to me is a scheme thing. I think it's still a growing pains thing with Michael Penix. You see times where he's great. You see other times where it almost looks like he's seeing ghosts, seeing deer in a headlight. And I'm going to tell you, what happened in the second half of Buffalo is what's going to happen until the Falcons prove they can beat it. Second half, Buffalo said, okay, they're killing us in zone. We're going to come up. We're going to be physical. We're going to send an extra pass rusher, and we're going to see if they can beat man coverage. We scored 3 points. You know what San Fran did most of the time? When it came to 3rd and situation or 2nd and long, we're going to play bump coverage. We're going to walk a guy up. We're going to send extra pressure, and we're going to make Michael Penix make reads quick and get the ball out. And I don't know that we have guys really that are man beaters. Bijan can beat anybody. Kyle Pitts is a mismatch. Drake London's a big body guy, but we don't have anybody right now that really scares you that if you run a shallow cross and you hit them in space, that they're going to be off to the races. Ray McLeod not being here, he could be one of those guys. I don't know what the hell's going on with him, but it's like, I guess he's done with football for now, or the Falcons are done with him. but something's got to give. And maybe it's Zach Robinson. Maybe I don't know what position coach they could fire now, but the offense should not be this bad.
Yeah, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It's just very frustrating to watch week in, week out. You know, it is the thing about having a talent, man. See, if we didn't have the talent, you know, like it's like okay, right, but we do, and that's the frustrating part about it. I mean, because Bijan cannot be everything every single week. It's just too much on one player, even if I mean, if it looks like he can do it, he can't, because he is human, you
I'll add
know.
an update. I just got a text. Falcons have just released Ray McCloud. So he's no longer on
Wow.
the football team. So whatever was going on behind the scenes there, remember 2 weeks ago he was the healthy scratch, and then this week Raheem sent him home, didn't even have him go to San Fran. You kind of knew this was coming. To me, that means the Falcons got to go find another playmaker at receiver. Like I like Casey Washington. He's probably a 4 or 5 right now in the league. He's not a 3. I'm calling around. The trade deadline's coming up in a couple of weeks. Can I find another receiver to help out in the slot? Because I think you need one at this point.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that definitely. Yeah. So we'll see if the Falcons can do that. But John, thank you for that update there. Falcons releasing Ray McCloud. So thank you for coming on today on the show. We appreciate your time and your insight and everything. And you know, we will see what the Falcons can do on Sunday, man, against a incompetent Dolphins team.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to give the shameless plug. Stop by the 680 The Fan free tailgate, corner of Marietta Street and Centennial Olympic. All you got to do is go to 680thefan.com/tailgate or just go to the front page of the website. Get yourself a ticket. Go in. Free food, free alcohol. DJ will be there. It'll be a blast. It'll get you ready for the Falcons and Dolphins. And the Falcons should open up a can of whoop ass on the Dolphins this week. We'll be 4-3 by the time Sunday afternoon comes.
yep, should be, should
Should
be.
be.
Should be. So yeah, make sure you guys go check out John and 680 The Fan there in Atlanta on Sunday as we host the Dolphins. But before we get there, John, thank you again for coming on, and we will see you next time on Jay's Fit Down.
Anytime.
All right, thank you.